Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C., and coming from Toronto is our guest, Mehdi Kouhestaninejad. He's a trade unionist from Iran and works with various international trade unions now, particularly on the file of what's going on with workers and unions in Iran. Thanks for joining us, Mehdi.
Thank you for having me today.
So first of all, just say exactly who it is you're affiliated with in terms of unions in Iran and outside, who you work with, who you represent.
Basically, I work with the various of trade union outside the country, Confederation Union, and also working with the trade union movement in Iran, independent trade union movement, basically.
Which unions in particular in Iran do you have a relationship with?
I working with the bus trade union workers.
The bus driver?
Yeah, bus driver, and I work with the Syndicat Haftapper.
And you do some work with the Canadian Labour Congress as well now, is that correct?
I work with the Canadian Labour Congress too.
Right. So from a point of view of Iranian workers, Iranian trade unions, how do you assess what's going on in the streets of Iran, and what are the alignment of forces in terms of what's happening amongst the elite?
I think according to what's going on in Iran right now, it's what's happened in the last 30 years in Iran for the freedom of speech and freedom of association. And Iranian workers, the same of other Iranian, they fought for these fundamental rights. Actually, most of people around the world, they have, and we don't have it in Iran at this moment.
Right. Now, there seems to be various forces at play here in struggle. You have one section of the elite that's been mostly associated with Rafsanjani. You have Mousavi. Then on the other side, you have the supreme leader. You have Ahmadinejad and the Revolutionary Guard. So there's this struggle within the elite itself. But in the streets, you have a spectrum of different parts of the Iranian public and organizations. You have outside forces. You have the Americans having their role in some way. The Russians have some role to play here. There's many, many different forces at play. But for you, what's the critical issue? And then break down how these different alignment of forces, what they are and what the relationship is.
Actually, we don't look at it this way of the outside and inside. What's going on in the street of Iran, it's not what's happening between the Rafsanjani and Mousavi or Ahmadinejad or any other forces from Russia to America. The question of Iranian people, maybe a few weeks ago it was for the election, but right now is beyond the election. It's not what other source tell them to what's going on and who support who. It's important for every Iranian in Iran right now to actually they have a rights for what they are basically a few weeks ago. They asked for election, even though we know that it's not a free election. It's a selection or election of who can be authority accepted as a candidate. But Iranian people, majority of them, the young and women and most of the elite, they thought this is the forum or this is the time for them to send a message no to Ahmadinejad. And basically they try to work through of the Mousavi in the line of the change. And what kind of change Mousavi could have bring it for the workers in Iran, it wasn't that much difference than before, because the workers in Iran for the last 30 years, they saw the first Mr. Mousavi, he was the prime minister during the 8 years of Iran and Iraq war, and they saw Mr. Rafsanjani, who was the person wants to saying that reconstruction of the Iran, and after him, Mr. Khatami, he said this is the freedom, and basically Mr. Ahmadinejad followed the same path as the other went, and Iranian people, majority of Iranian, they didn't see the change can be made by Mr. Mousavi, but at least they were fed up with the Ahmadinejad policy, internally and externally.
Now, there's a suggestion being made in the American blogosphere, and you even see it today on RT, Russia Today television, that this is all kind of inspired by the United States and the CIA, and what's going on in the streets is sort of what one saw either in Eastern Europe with the colored revolutions, or one saw sometimes they're even trying to compare it to the opposition in Venezuela. To what extent does the U.S. Play some kind of role in instigating what's going on in the streets?
I don't see any kind of the American role, besides some of those TV may have some kind of propaganda. But the Iranian people, we should have to be honest with ourselves. Iranian, they are beyond those color code. They saying that black is Ahmadinejad, is green is Mr. Mousavi. But Iranian people, they do not buy any of those propaganda, no matter it's coming from East or West. Or if we want to really to assess this situation with what's happened in the East Bloc, it's a totally different time, totally different era, and what we are talking, we are dealing with the religious fundamentalist government in Iran, and there is no shape of way they accepting this kind of they trying to inject the idea of this velvet revolution, color revolution to oppress more people. But in reality, in the street of Tehran, none of them is relevant, and people of Iran is much more educated and much more understanding what's going on. And they are, if I don't want to be a nationalist and say that we are exceptional, but this what's happening in Iran right now is unique. We don't have in the history of any country to dealing with the government. They are oppressing with the heavy-handed, clamped on every kind of the protest. But the people of Iran, they are doing the civil disobedience. Basically, it's coming from the idea of the Gandhi in India. They try to match it in Iran to say that we are non-violence, unlike our government. They are violence. They are promoting violence, not only inside Iran, outside Iran. But Iranian people, basically, they are not. We cannot compare, or we cannot bring them down under the umbrella of any kind of the government or any kind of the agency to say that no, Iranian people gets their order from us.
Now, Mehdi, these election protests, or the protests, began at least about the elections themselves, with people thinking the elections were stolen, that the results were announced too quickly. And what are the Iranian trade unions saying about the election process? And then what do they think? We'll start from there. Have the Iranian trade unions spoken about the election and fairness of it itself?
For sure, Iranian trade union, what they spoke about this election, they said to their members, we are not telling you to vote for who, or we don't say that to boycott the election. Most of you, they are mature and they are educated. You can read and you can ask any candidate. And we know this process is undemocratic, but in the fact that you have to put your issue on the table for any candidate to see what's the reaction. And by the way, as you know that in last week, the Syndicate of Wahed, they had a statement. They saying that regardless of what was the election result, but we have to join the millions of people outside right now in demonstrating in Iran. We have to support their fundamental democratic rights. They have a right to have a freedom of the election, or at least to free process. And this is not only with the Syndicate of Wahed, other trade unions, they do the same thing. But as you know that in May Day in Lale Park in Tehran, close to 2,000 people, they had a plan to have a May Day rally. Prior to even start the rally, close to few thousand plainclothes and armed force security guard, they went and they really very harshly beating people and arresting 200, and we are still, as I talk to you, there is still people, they are in a prison based on that May Day activity. The labor movement knows what's going on. They have their own way to say their issue, but unfortunately, the situation in Iran is much beyond what's going on with the labor movement, and we have to broaden our issue than what's only going on with the trade union movement in Iran.
Have the unions taken a position on whether they think the election count itself was fair or not? Do unions think that the vote was stolen? Have they said anything?
If they cannot, as you know better than me, we are dealing with the government. They're using any kind of the issue to oppressing and going after anybody say what. We are not dealing with a free, open society. But their action, they are in the street, they are walking with the people's hand to hands with those people, they are demonstrating, they are looking for maybe a week ago, they were looking for their votes, but right now I don't think anybody looking for their votes. They are beyond the...
When you say they're beyond this, then what is it they're demanding now? If it's not a new vote, what are they demanding?
Their demand is right now is they are asking that Ahmadinejad has to basically accept that he is not the president of Iran. He is the person, even though they calling that this was the 80% of the voter came out and he got it 62% of the votes. But in reality, it's the person in charge of the IT of the IT in the Ministry of the State. Last week, he announced the result totally was different, and he was killed in an accident, in a car accident, and who knows why he was killed in the car accident. But the result is totally different, and they are asking that the legitimacy of the leadership is under big question.
Including the supreme leader?
Yes. The legitimacy of the supreme leader is under question. It's not only with the Iranian workers, even the majority of those so-called of the very supportive of the revolution starting in 1979, they are saying that legitimacy of the supreme leader is under question, and we have to talk to see how we can find the exit plan. They're looking for the exit plan. It's not that easy to find the exit plan for themselves, but they know that the situation is getting out of their hand. They cannot control people. They cannot take people back home. People cannot stay in the home, because this revolution is not starting. I call it revolution, but I don't call it color revolution. This revolution started 30 years ago in Iran. The revolution started. They had a slogan for equality and equity for everyone. The majority of women, they are in the street right now. They fought for their equity. Unfortunately, they don't have. But what's going on in the street of Tehran is the beginning of the end of the era of the Iranian government.
Okay, in the next segment of our interview, let's talk a little further about who's who in the Iranian elite and whether the Iranian trade unions, labor movement, think it would be any different or better with the fall of Ahmadinejad, and if it is Mousavi that comes to power, and whether that's even possible. And perhaps most importantly, let's talk about the role of the Revolutionary Guard. So please join us for the next segment of our interview with Mehdi Kouhestani. And if you want this kind of coverage of the Iranian Revolution, you need to click on the donate button. We need members. We need you to support this kind of independent approach, not only to the Iranian struggle, but to many issues around the world. So please click donate and become a member. And if you're already a member, please donate again. Thank you.